DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time to welcome Pablo Mastroeni back to the show. He's had a little break during the World Cup, but RSL's back at it Wednesday. They've got a little tune-up game before they jump back into league play. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Pablo, before we get to your team, it has been a World Cup break here, and I know you played in the World Cup, and you're emotionally invested in the team, and that had to be a big old kick in the teeth. Not just that they lost. I mean, they were always going to lose at some point, but they didn't go out battling the way Mexico did. They didn't go out scrapping and fighting the way Egypt did. Those two lost with dignity, and they entertained us while they lost. And sometimes when you battle like that, you're like Switzerland, and you get the penalties, and you win and you advance. Instead, they got drilled. And I'm thinking that everyone's worried about the third goal, which was a whole horrendous goalkeeping mistake. But when that first goal drops between three U.S. players, the ball drops and no one reacts, and one other guy steps up and crosses it in front and it's a tap-in, I'm thinking you lost your mind, because I've heard you talk about goals like that, and they kill you.
Yeah. I think that first goal kind of encapsulates the way the whole game went, which was on both sides of the ball, we were like one step behind, and again, I think there's moments in games that kind of highlight where your mentality is, right? And you saw three guys not going for the ball in that one play, but you had one Belgian guy that was daring and brave enough to step through. And it kind of like that moment, I think that player for Belgium really set the tone from a mentality perspective as to how we're going to be on the front foot. And the three U.S. players kind of looking up in the air and thinking the other guy was going to do it kind of is metaphorically saying, I'm not going to take responsibility for this. You do it, you do it, you do it. And I think that was kind of the disappointing part of the game, and I think the other part too is, and we talked about this a little bit, all three host countries, they got great draws as far as their group play. And to be fair, the one game where U.S. was going to always be tested was going to be Turkey. And then they played a different group. And so there wasn't a whole lot to extrapolate from the group play as to when they encounter a really good team, right? And then Bosnia, obviously a team that squeaked into the World Cup. That was a good draw for the U.S. as well. And I think all three games that the U.S. won, they played a certain way, and they forced our opponents to play a certain way. When you get to the tougher stages, you're not going to dictate to Argentina, to Brazil, to the big clubs, the big countries. They have a style of play that you have to also be aware of. And so I think we caught Belgium on a day where they were motivated, and obviously the Mulligan situation, I think, added fire to their belief. And they had something bigger to play for. And, I think the U.S. just started the game off in a really kind of doubtful way. And it permeated through the rest of the 90 minutes. And I think that's where you're saying, we kind of fell flat. And so it's a tough way to go out. I think there's a ton of bright spots that, after the emotional pain kind of subsides, there's a lot of really bright spots for the U.S. national team, some individual players, and really the direction that we need to move in to continue to be a really good World Cup team.
So you say you started the game in a doubtful way, and that jumps out to me. So that sounds like if a team does that, it's basically the situation could be where they're beat before they even start. So how do you get that, even if you have to trick yourself that you're not in that doubtful way and you're dealing it from a position of confidence? Yeah,
that's a great point. I think the easiest way to do that, I think, is it's not going to be with the ball. It's going to be against the ball, because I think that moment, I think what oftentimes ignites a team is a great defensive tackle, is something that's questionable, where the ref is maybe giving a yellow card to you because you were really, really aggressive. And now it kind of revs the engines up a little bit, like it heightens your senses. And I just felt like too often from a defensive standpoint, we were either, pressing when we shouldn't have been, or we were kind of caught in between players, and it was Belgium, and to be fair, Belgium did a great job where they knew that the U.S. wanted to press. So they Belgium would bait them all the way back to their goalkeeper. They'd move their whole lines forward. And then Belgium said, we're not going to fall for this. We're going to go over your back line. And there hadn't been a team in the World Cup that had threatened the back line. And now you see a player like Tim Ream, who, again, had a fantastic World Cup. But when you're up against speedsters that also have great quality and balls in behind, and you're running now back to your goal to defend, it's asking a lot of questions. So I would say how you get back into it is a moment where the fan base gets involved, right? Whether it's a great attacking play and, the guys are throwing their arms up in the air like follow us, or it's a great defensive play where as a group you're saying, this is the moment, this is where we put our flag in the ground. This is it. You're coming to here, and then from there on, you're going to get bit. You're going to get, you're going to catch a foot. But there wasn't really a moment of that could change the game at any point. And I think that's why we kind of went along with the momentum that Belgium was playing at.
Okay, so a story, a problem, and then I'll ask you for the answer. The story is a hilarious Brian Dunce's story, which he tells much better than I'm about to. But he talks about how when he was a kid and these youth national setups and that kind of deal, they'd all do the training and watch the film, and it's really hard work and the hardest thing they'd ever been up against, right? And then they finally have time to kind of bond as a group and go to the mall or whatever. And they'd be walking out, and there'd be one kind of weird kid in the group who was over there juggling or doing some little drill with cones or whatever. He says, yeah, that weird kid, he grew up to be Landon Donovan and score like 57 goals for the U.S. national team. And Dunny would laugh like, yeah, we all missed the boat. It was the million touches that he got that we didn't that made him special, and we weren't. And I hear people talk about the U.S. will be good in soccer when they have the best athletes. But I think it's about getting the bazillion touches so you can make the ball do whatever you want. That goal Mbappe scored in the quarterfinal, he couldn't see the goal. The defender was there. He bends the ball around the defender and hits the post, and it goes in. And he knew it. He was celebrating before it happened because he's had those million touches as a kid. We have 30 academies now where anybody can play for free, but mostly it's pay for play. Until we have 300 academies. I know it's a nation of 350 million people, but we're not really scouring 350 million people for 11 soccer players. I mean, right. We're not. So is there another path, or do there have to be? I don't know that there was an academy anywhere near Thunderbird High for UNPK. You somehow made it through, but I mean, doesn't it have to be an academy on the west side of Phoenix, on the east side, and not just one, halfway between Tucson and Phoenix out in the middle of nowhere in Casa Grande?
No, that's actually a great question, and I can actually answer it from a personal perspective, and really interesting. So I had a club coach. His name was Luis Dabo, and he came from. He was born in Guinea-Bissau, played professionally in Portugal, played at a really, really high level. Then he got into coaching in indoor soccer in the MISL, and then he ended up in Arizona coaching youth soccer. And he had a philosophy that was way ahead of its time, and he took a lot of the Portuguese philosophy for developing young players, which is exactly what you're talking about, which is touches. So every day for the first hour of training, we had a 2-hour training session Monday through Thursday as kids. The first hour was you and your ball. And so it was left foot, right foot. It was trapping. It was kicking the ball up in the air to yourself, bringing it down, trapping, changing your speed. And then we got into passing, and then it was like two guys up one ball, creating movements, and you had to do this all within the center circle of a soccer field, right? So it's not the biggest space, and there could be up to like 40 people in there at any one time. And so you're working your passing technique, you're working your dribbling technique for the first hour inside that circle. As kids, it was the most boring, mundane. It was the worst. It was the worst. Right? Because we all want to shoot. We all want to play. We don't really want to work on our technique. But he did it. And the amount of kids that would leave the club is incredible. They said, no, we're going to this other club. And they'd go to the other club. But what was amazing, within 1 year, they would always be back. And the whole thing was because our team started to get, we weren't good when we were young. But as we got to 15, we got to 16, we got to 17, we ended up going to the national tournament, and I think we finished second in nationals as an under-17 youth team. And it wasn't because tactically we were astute. As a matter of fact, he never coached tactics. The only thing he'd coach is individual one-on-ones, individual technique, And that made, and I think from our club team, we sent, I think, 12 players to Division I schools across the country. And this is 1994, right? And it didn't matter what position you played, because if you can control the ball, if you understood where to pass the ball, if you understood how to manipulate this thing, the college coach could say, we need a left back, or we need a midfielder, or we need a winger. It didn't matter. We were all capable of doing that. And so I think what you're explaining, what you're talking about, is exactly the philosophy of the youth coach I had. But the problem with that is he didn't care about winning games. And now when people pay to play, they care about winning, right? The parents live vicariously through their kids, and they say they want to be able to go to the barbecue at the weekend and be like, oh, we won 4-0. And it's not like Travis won 4-0. It's we won 4-0, you know? And so I think it's a huge cultural thing where, and now this generation of parents are super involved, where back when I was growing up, my parents would drop me off at soccer and that was it. Or I got a ride with someone to soccer, or I went with another family to tournaments. It's not like that anymore. And so the involvement of the parents, I think, is a big issue with that. And the other part too is, if you pay, you want to win. And that's winning at a young age is synonymous with my money's worth it. It's not about developing young players. And then the other part to this, and sorry, this is so long-winded, but the coaching piece is every coach at the youth level wants to be a Premier League coach. So the first thing they're coaching is tactics. How do we beat this under 8 team? Because they're going to be a swarm of bees in the middle of the field. So how do we align ourselves, along the outside and make them run and then attack the goal, right? It's not. So my point is that the most important thing is the story about Landon, which is 1 million touches. And the environment and the culture that exists today in soccer in America doesn't provide 1 million touches. And so unless you're going to be the odd guy that's out there juggling on your own when everyone else is going to the mall, it's going to be very hard to get to that level. And so, but I think, so I don't know what the answer is, DJ, but I hear you. I lived it. And it was one of the reasons why I was able to move on in my career, because I played 1 million different positions. But one thing I always had was a good control of the ball and a good understanding of how to manipulate it.
Well, that was deep, Pablo. So here I come. Do you think the U.S. coach looked like Russell Crowe, like I did?
Yeah, I thought so too. That's what we called him, the Argentinian Russell Crowe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was calling him. And he wore the same costume every game, which was pretty. He played the part every game.
I did tell my wife at one point, he looks like a high school art teacher. He looks like he should. Ceramics on Tuesday, kids.
And then he turned into Russell Crowe when he kicked the water bottles. That was the action part.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, the World Cup will go on without the United States here. It'll be over soon, and Major League Soccer will be back at it. You've got a game Wednesday with Burnley, a little tune-up game here to get you going. And I think that the challenge in front of you, and you know this well, I won't recount all the numbers. Last year, after the League's Cup break, the team had been playing really well, and then they lost 5 out of 6. And I won't recount all the numbers going back, but that's not the first summer that's happened where you were flying spring, early summer, you have a break, and you never recapture the magic. So I know you know all those numbers, and you probably know them better than I do, and I'm sure you're trying something different this year so the team keeps playing the way it was because, again, you were having a really good run. What are you doing so this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, I think we have a good snapshot of the first third of the season where we're able to now go, these are the things that we're doing well. These are the areas we struggled in, and we talked about it. Set pieces has been an area. We revamped our defensive set piece setup. So that's been, and we put it on display at this a couple days ago in Minnesota, which is really good. The other part is one of the areas is how do we manage games? Not just, again, with leads, without leads, when it's 0-0, is like how do we manage games and create control? Where I thought a lot of the good games we played, we had a lot of great control. But then when we had the lead, it felt like we were just ceding a lot of territory and really relying on Hoffa to be the guy that solved the problems closer to our goal, which was great when it worked, but when it didn't, we gave our opponents a lot of territory. And so again, that was something that we saw from, the last month of work here in Minnesota, which was really good. And I think those two things are really the biggest things. We've conceded close to 40% of our goals from set pieces, right? So that obviously, if the numbers are, if we didn't concede any set piece goal in the first part, we'd be 6 points ahead in the table, in the league, right? So that's an area that if we don't address, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So, and then the control piece and continuing to think about how we can be a more fluid attacking team, continue to create great opportunities. And again, we just went to Minnesota. We put 4 in the back of the net in 4. We played 3 45-minute periods. So that part's good. So there's a lot of things that are the work is kind of showing through, but I think this Burnley game will be a great test for us. Obviously, a team that's has been playing at a much higher level. Obviously, different players probably from the time they're in the Prem, but it'll be a great challenge for us and a game where we can continue to fine tune the different areas of the game that we're working on.
During this past few weeks and so forth, what was required of the guys in terms of a schedule?
Yeah, to be fair, the guys have been all in when, we gave them 3 weeks off, and then we were in, 5 days a week and usually gave the guys 2 days off. But again, I think it was just being really deliberate of like, do we want to be a top team in this league? And if it is, then there's no substitute for working hard and being deliberate about the work that you're doing. And the guys have been all in, and we've made the sessions to where it's not the tactics are actually a part of the exercise. It's kind of built in. And then we've been doing video sessions to recap, and the guys have been all in. And the one thing I would say, PK, is you never know how guys are going to come back from break, but they were all fit. They were all hungry. And again, for me, the proof is always in the game. You can talk about the environment and training and all these things, but are you seeing the things that you want in the game? Are they playing with excitement? Are they playing hard for each other? And those things were on full display a couple days ago. So I think it's been a great reset for us to identify those areas. But more importantly, the guys have just taken it on. And like I always talk about, great teams are led by the players and they're guided by the coaches. And that's what it feels like at the moment.
Burnley was in the English Premier League. They got relegated, so now they'll be in the championship here this coming season. And I've heard Garth Lagerwey has gotten involved with that club, former Real Salt Lake general manager back when they won the Cup in 2009. Have you talked much with Garth? Was he part of putting this together? What's his role with Burnley? Can you answer any of those questions, Pablo?
All I can answer is I think you're right about the Garth Lagerwey being involved. I know Jason Christ was instrumental in making this game happen. And he's got a really good relationship with Garth. Right. So that would be a great question for Jason as to the details of how all that happened.
Yeah. All right, here's my contribution. I'm going to read you some song lyrics.
Uh-oh.
Hey, all you Chiefs, come on and fight. We've got the team with all the might. We've got the score. We'll get some more. We'll get the victory in our sight. Hey, all you Chiefs, we are the best in all the North, South, East, and West. We are the team that runs with speed and fame, and that's why Thunderbird will win this game. That's our fight song.
The crazy thing is, I remember parts of that. That's crazy.
So I
remember.
Since you went to Thunderbird High School and PK went to Thunderbird High School and I didn't, I just have to time travel to, well, you went in different decades. I have to time travel to the different decades you were there. Basically, should I just picture myself in Minnesota seeing those fans sing Wonderwall? Was it pretty much the same thing, Pablo?
It wasn't the same thing. It was much more, it's hard to explain, DJ. One of these days, the three of us should all meet back at Thunderbird High, and there's a little mountain at the top with a big T. You know how they do those. They paint the mountain.
Right over by the tennis courts.
Is that like the hill they climb at ASU football games to watch for free?
Yeah, we have
the same
a T
deal
right there.
Do people climb those to watch Thunderbird games for free? Is it the same deal?
They can actually walk into the little stadium.
Yeah, I was going to say there wasn't that much of a demand for tickets.
All right, Pablo.
But the baseball field was right along Thunderbird Road, and so when we were out there many times, usually just in practice because there were no fans. You'd get kids from other schools that would drive by, particularly if they're going west, so the passengers are there. You suck, you're awful. Well, we used to get that all the time.
That's good stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for the lyrics, PK. I'm now looking at Google Maps, and I can see the road that zigs right around the baseball field. PK's told me all about
Thunderbird.
it. Yeah, Thunderbird Eye.
Yeah.
All right, those are the days. All right, Pablo, Wednesday night, Real Salt Lake back at it at home against Burnley, and then give it another week, and you'll be off and running. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Always fun. Take care.
All right, there's Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach.